Auburn's latest hire goes against a lot of the narratives written about Hugh Freeze.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen. Every single day, we're dapping it up with the Darrell Dapprich, Montgomery radio legend, hanging out with us. Some notes coming out of Auburn basketball's camp that's starting up and generating some excitement. We'll talk about the latest recruiting chatter. Auburn continuing to build some momentum there, but a new hire happening earlier this week, Darrell. And normally these types of hires in the last decade or so, I wouldn't typically talk about, but these non, or I guess these off-field hires now, they matter way more than they used to. So Auburn has hired Javon Hubbard. He was over their player personnel and at Arkansas. And now Javon Hubbard, it seems like he's going to be the guy like right under Will Redmond, Auburn's general manager, and a guy who you and I both have a ton of respect for the job that he's done so far. I think hires like this go against this whole narrative that Hugh Freeze, that he's done, that he's checked out. When he keeps finding ways to innovate in this new era of college football, where there's a lot of kind of guessing on what the next step looks like when it comes to staffing, and he's doing it by plucking guys from the SEC.
First of all, in this day and age of college football, the model is being run a lot more like an NFL model. There's director of player personnel. I mean, when did you ever hear a term 20, 30 years ago, general manager? It was only in professional athletics you did. Now he's got an assistant GM, right? So make no mistake, this is to navigate, all the off the field operations. It's to help with recruiting. But I think, you always have, and I hate to say this, but the comparison about professional sports is in any professional sport that has a cap, you have a cap manager. The assistant general manager is responsible for figuring out how to get the general manager goes and makes the trades, and the assistant manager figures out how to get them in under the cap.
Sure.
I think, Zach, this is shining a light on the new era of college football with revenue sharing. Does third-party NILs, count against the cap? What is the cap? How much do we have left? What do they call them? Capologists? That's the term I was looking for. That's what they are.
Yeah.
And so isn't it a shame that you need this in college football now? But you do, because you get fined, you lose draft picks in professional sports. I would imagine in collegiate sports, it's things like probation, sanctions, that kind of thing. Eventually, that remains to be seen. So maybe he's in that kind of role, a capologist kind of guy.
Yeah, so he and Freeze have a history. Jovon Hubbard, they were together for 3 years at Liberty. And so, we've talked about how Hugh Freeze likes his guys around him, which I don't think is a bad thing. That's not unusual. And they were successful at Liberty. So obviously, him finding some success, I guess, at Arkansas. I mean, it's a totally different game talking about managing rosters at Arkansas versus Auburn. I think that'll be the case moving forward, but he's certainly capable. Hugh Freeze trusts him. Hopefully they've already kind of got some rapport built up. But the thing I like most about this, though, and I touched on it at the top, is just Hugh Freeze is still finding ways to innovate. And when everybody's talking about how he's done with everything and how he's just more concerned about golfing than winning and recruiting and all of that stuff, this isn't the type of hire that you make if you're mentally and emotionally done where you are. Because you're then just, okay, I'm content. We've got a good roster. Let's go into the season. We'll worry about roster management later or in the offseason. And we all know at that point, then it's too late. I just don't think this is the type of move or the type of hire that is done by somebody who's just over it and mentally done, like some people have been saying about Hugh Freeze over the last few months?
What happens is the narrative changes from year to year. So I think you're making an excellent point about something that popped into my head yesterday, is that the first 2 years, there were a lot of people, including myself, who was a little bit concerned that Hugh Freeze was putting too much of an emphasis on recruiting and not as much emphasis on the game day stuff, and also developing the roster. When you start focusing on roster retention, you are focusing more on the here and now game day stuff and build and development of the roster. And that's kind of where the shift was. Now we're complaining that there's too much of that, not enough in recruiting. There's a healthy balance there. You can strike a balance, and how you strike a balance is by not trying to do it all yourself, by delegating. And I think he tried the delegation route too much with offensive coordinators in the past, as far as calling plays, on-field stuff, roster development. I think anytime you swing the pendulum way back the other way, it's extreme. He's trying to find that balance. And a hire like this, Zach, does show that he's still very, very much plugged in, but it might be saying, because I'm focusing so much on this current roster and what I think this current roster can do, let me get some help with the off-the-field stuff and figure out how all this is going to fit up before the signing class in December.
Yeah, I think so. And look, I think Hugh Freeze has done a good job of hiring for the most part. First-year coordinators, I don't know. I mean, especially on the offensive side. Defensive side, I actually don't think it was that bad. But as far as like the assistants in these off-field roles, I mean, I think we could make a pretty nice list of hires that we feel like he kind of nailed. Now he's got to get into the habit of letting those guys work, especially on the recruiting front, because he can't do all of it, especially since it appears that he's still going to be the main guy calling plays on offense. I know he says that it's going to be a collaborative effort, but like we all know what that means. And so to me, I'm 100% with you. Like Hugh Freeze's greatest strength and Auburn's greatest recruiting strength is Hugh Freeze, and Hugh Freeze's greatest strength is recruiting. But on where you can delegate, especially when I do think over time, and this is sad, but I think it's the part of the future, is I think these relationships and what typically makes guys good recruiters is going to matter less in the coming years than it used to, because a lot of it's going to come down to money. It stinks, but I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, it's not about relationship. It's not about playing time. It's not about, can I get you in the league? All those things that used to be very, very key. It's about just highest bidder.
Yeah. So now from the Auburn point of view, it's like, okay, how can you get the best value for the best, talent to money ratio, right? And I think the more guys you get that know exactly what they're looking for, the better. And I think Javon Hubbard does exactly that.
It's also worth noting that when you are able to do this and poach somebody from another SEC school, it's also added value. Because you are taking someone away from someone in your conference, especially someone you've played the last couple of years. And LSU
and Auburn plays Arkansas this year too.
Yep. And LSU did it with Ole Miss, and other schools have done it with Ole Miss, and other schools have. I mean, that's the poaching aspect of this is kind of a double whammy to the school that's losing the employee.
I agree 100%. All right, Auburn continues to get some momentum on the recruiting trail. What that means, who's next for the Tigers, we take a stab at it right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Darrell, can you imagine buying tickets anywhere other than with our friends at Game Time?
I love using the word one-stop shop.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime you want to do anything that requires a ticket, there's where you go right there. It doesn't matter what the venue, what the genre, anything like that. One-stop shop.
Yep. It's summer. There's a lot of concerts as well as baseball games going on. So make sure Game Time, the app is downloaded on your phone. And when you download the Game Time app, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Once again, code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Earlier in the week, Auburn lands Jaquez Wilkes, which has everybody excited, rightfully so. Top 100 player. On 3 has him ranked as the highest player in Auburn's class now. You also think of the tandem in the future of him and Hezekiah Harris. It's hard not to get excited about that from a pass rushing standpoint, if that's how they choose to use Wilkes. There's so many things about this that are great. It also sets the stage now for Auburn to kind of get hot a little bit. When you talk about Jace Matthews, when you talk about Womack, the 5-star safety that some people are saying Auburn might actually be the leader for at this point. Deron Parks, who's announcing, I believe, this Saturday. Auburn's got a chance here to have a pretty special 2-week window of guys potentially committing to them before the season starts, when the last 2 months have just been brutal on the recruiting front. All of a sudden, like a good 2 weeks could fix a lot of things and silence a lot of people.
2 more names to consider, and there might be a little flippity flip in there. The Johnson kid from Texas A&M. Is his name Thaddeus Johnson? I believe it is. I don't remember, but he's somebody that's Auburn legacy, I believe. And I'm hearing a lot of buzz about him.
It's Hayden
Johnson.
Caden Johnson. Yeah.
So how I got Thaddeus out of
that's
pretty
wild.
Exciting. But anyway,
That's truly wild.
The last name's correct, and the school he's currently committed to, Texas A&M, and he is an Auburn legacy. So that's one. And then the Rankins kid that's committed to Florida State is another one that I'm hearing could be a flip possibility. So the 3 names that you mentioned, a lot of buzz, and then the 2 names there. You did mention Womack, right?
I did. The 5-star, yep.
So, yeah, I mean, you talk about those 5 or 6 could get you into the top 20. And remember now, this is going to be a smaller class. So Auburn could have a really good class with that average star ranking, and still be 22nd or 23rd if they only go with 16 signees. And that's what we're hearing is probably more than likely what Auburn's going to do. And in some of these recruiting sites, the more recruits you get, the higher your rank. So let's just keep that in mind too.
Yeah. The way it's scaled, I mean, the volume is weighted very heavily in rankings, which is fine. And that's probably the correct way to do it in most situations when you're going big picture. So I don't think it's a wrong thing. But I do think looking at average player ranking when it's all said and done will be Auburn's argument for legitimacy in this. And I think they'll be right, because they're saying, okay, in a few years when the bulk of the starters are from this class, we're going to go into the portal. That's what that means. And that's totally okay. Especially when you look at like average player ranking and the guys bringing it down are the guard from Carver, who's like solid, and then Wayne Henry from Maryland. And it's like, okay, like if those are 2 of the lower guys ranked in this class, that's fine. And then the Cal Heppy, the kid from New Zealand, who's just a total, project, going to be super, super raw, new to the sport. It's like all of those guys' upside is tremendous. So like, you know what? I'm okay with that.
I haven't had a chance to do the math, but I saw on 3 different posts or 3 different things out there after Wilkes committed yesterday that Auburn now is up to 25th in the average star ranking per player. That obviously they're like 60 something because they've only got 10 recruits, but the average per player, that if you were to do it that way, they're around 25. If you get into the top 15 with that ranking, with the ranking per player, average star ranking, you take 16 players, you should be totally satisfied with that.
Especially with all the off-field stuff that they've had to battle, as far as like, or I guess it is technically on-field, like the losing the last 2 years. Like if you can go 8-4, 9-3, and the class end like we're talking about it ending, you look at the future, and it's like, okay, all right, you are more primed and set up to have an incredible 2027 class in that scenario, because you'll have proof of concept. You'll presumably have the scholarships ready to go, as well as rev share and NIL, as far as like we're not acting like it's a salary cap, but it is a salary cap to some extent. So you'd have wiggle room there as well. And like, I think Auburn's going to have a pretty solid draft after this upcoming season. And I think that's going to help them a lot too. So it sets them up for the long-term build. But sometimes it's hard to see the forest for all the trees.
The transfer portal allows you to have one of those classes that could be just a blip in the radar, recede back a little bit, go from a top 10 class to a top 20 class.
Yeah.
Even if you only take 16 players, you don't worry about that as much as you used to, because you can just look and, like you mentioned, plug holes. Auburn did a really, really good. People keep forgetting what kind of transfer portal class they had in January and the needs that they got. I mean, arguably the two most important positions on the field, 2 offensive tackles and a quarterback, and they went and got starters. And then they got the most dynamic receiver. So that model, that template can be repeated, certainly, if it needs to be in the future.
Yeah. So it seems like Auburn's got some off-field momentum. We'll see if that turns into more commitments and some potential flips over the coming weeks. I think it will. Does Auburn get all those guys we mentioned? No. In fact, the one I feel least confident in is Jace Matthews. I actually feel pretty good about the other ones, all for different reasons.
Yeah.
Ron Parks, I think, like, if it was a perfect scenario, I think he would want to go to Ohio State, which feels weird. I'm in Columbus right now as we have this conversation, but I do think he would choose Ohio State, but I don't think Ohio State has a spot for him. He's more important to Auburn than he is Ohio State. FSU's name has popped up as well. I think he goes to Auburn when it's all said and done. Jace Matthews is fascinating. He's had plenty of time to be more outward towards Auburn, and he hasn't. So I'm a little concerned there. But some people close to the program feel really good about that. And then, Womack seems to really like Auburn as well. So, I don't know. I think they're in a good spot.
August is going to be very, very interesting.
Sure.
Very interesting to follow.
Sure. Right now it's interesting for the Auburn basketball team. We're hearing good things. Let's take a stab at the starting 5, what we're hearing there in just a second, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by Kia Autosport of Columbus. Darrell, my family, we bought a Kia Sorento several years ago. It served our family very, very well. And if you need a new vehicle and you're near the Auburn, Opelika area, head over to Columbus. It's worth it. And the folks at Kia Autosport of Columbus will take care of you. How would you like this, Darrell? Paying $3,000 less, taking $3,000 off of MSRP, off of any new Kia Sorento. That sounds like a good deal.
It's a great deal.
I'm not going to argue about that at all.
No, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Also, free tires for life and a lifetime powertrain warranty. Just ask your sales associate about that off of any new Kia vehicle. And look, our guy Chris Child over there, ask for Chris Child. He's the man. And tell him you're a Locked On Auburn listener. They take $500 off of any new Kia purchase. Come on. Just mention that you listen to the show. Head over to Kia Autosport of Columbus, just off of Whittlesey Boulevard in Columbus, Georgia, or visit KiaAutosportColumbus.com to browse their full inventory and start saving today. Auburn basketball fresh off of their second Final Four appearance, and everyone's gone except for Tahad Pettiford. And you look at each individual addition, you're like, okay, that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. But it's just a lot of pieces. Now is when those pieces have to turn into a roster and turn into a team and turn into, what we've seen Auburn be able to be under Bruce Pearl for the last, half decade, really. So, Darrell, it just seems like you're starting to see and hear of a starting 5 that's going to be pretty respected within the SEC, the best conference in college basketball right now.
And it's kind of what you thought going in. I like the no surprises, kind of this is what was expected. The first bit of news is that Jovic, the international player who people are just raving about with some of the stuff he did in friendlies and stuff like that and in exhibition games, made it over last week. So I don't know exactly how much he's practiced. I know that there has been enough to our guy, somebody that we use on the inside that's a good source for Auburn basketball that gives us a lot of good information. says that they're very high on him, and that there's been kind of a five that has emerged in Tahad Pettiford, Kevin Overton, Keyshawn Hall, Jovich, and Murphy. And I think Murphy playing the 5, Jovich playing the 4. Okay. Sometimes they're interchangeable. That like guys like Bashir and
Magwood,
the Oporium kid, or however you pronounce his name, the junior college 7-footer, Freeman, will definitely help coming off the bench, but that they're not. There's a definite, as of now, and that could change. There's a definite, demarcation line of where. And if you would have asked me a month ago, all right, Darrell, predict what the starting 5 is going to be.
This would have been it.
That would have been it, and in exactly the same position. So the known is good, and then is Magwood going to step up? Bashir, who's obviously a little bit thinner, he's got to put some weight on. Freeman's coming from Division II. That's a huge step up. Those types of things have to happen because Auburn, in the style they want to play, Zach, they got to go 8 or 9 deep. They can't go 6 or 7 deep. That doesn't work anymore in this system.
Yeah. I mean, all of those guys have to step up to some extent for sure. I mean, I would think the guy who needs to step up the most, that's most important for Auburn, is Magwood, because I think in a perfect scenario, he's playing 12 to 15 minutes a night and you're giving all the rest to Tahad. But we all know this. What happens if Tahad, tweaks his ankle 5 minutes into a game, or, he's got 3 fouls in the first half and you need more minutes to go to your backup point guard. I mean, when all the questions about Tahad, is he going to go to the draft or not? Or is he going to stay in the draft or not? I mean, we said it pretty consistently, Auburn's not talking to other point guards, so they must believe he's coming back, which is obviously what happened. But because of that, you assumed that they believe Magwood is ready year 1 to be the backup point guard. And so that's the name of those non-starters that we're assuming. That's the one that's most important in my mind.
And that's a good point that sometimes people miss, is that, Pettiford was always coming back because Auburn didn't go get another point guard. Well, that's half of the equation. The other equations, which you mentioned, is that they felt so confident that a true freshman can come in and be the backup that they didn't go get a seasoned veteran backup point guard. And that's really rolling the dice because, I don't know of anybody else that's in a hybrid scenario that you could slide over to run the point right now. I don't know if Overton could. I don't know that. And so you're counting on Magwood to give you 8 to 10 minutes. Guards do get in foul trouble. And by the way, Pettiford had one of the largest propensities on the team to get quick fouls. He picked them up quick. He'd come off the bench. Before you know it, he'd have 3 for reaching and now, playing the kind of defense. So I do believe it was a really strong message that they didn't go get a backup point guard. You hope that doesn't come back to bite them once the season starts.
And I guess it depends. Overton could, maybe Bashir could. I think there's some guys that could bring the ball down the floor in a break glass in case of emergency type situation. But in this transfer portal era, how many elite guys have 3 point guards? I imagine that number is way less than it used to be.
Oh,
true point guard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a luxury.
You can't park a guy on the bench anymore.
You can't. And Auburn was fortunate last year that they did just that and went to the Final Four. JP Pegues was supposed to be their starting point guard, and he was 3rd in the rotation because they had to move Denver. Denver sliding over, but make no mistake, he slid over, I think, because of the lack of confidence or ability of JP Pegues to snatch that job.
Right.
I think in a perfect world, they would have liked to have Denver at the 2.
And then I don't know. That team, it just worked out because then it's well, what do you do with Miles and all that? But it just worked out. It just worked out. Thank goodness it did. But all in all, it's just going to be so fun to get to know this team because it's so different. It's so different as far as personality, personnel. I think even how it runs its offense is going to be vastly different because you don't have a Jedi Broom anymore. It's going to be Tahad Pettiford and Keyshawn Hall's offense if it was up to me. So I'm excited to see exactly how that develops over the course of the next few months leading into the season. Darrell, Dapprich, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Follow me on X, Dap6410, Wednesdays and Fridays right here with you and Locked on Auburn. And then Sunday nights, 8 o'clock with our good buddy Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie 5. We do a little barn live show at 8.
Yeah. Hey, please like the video. Please subscribe, and we will see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.